All right, today we're jumping right into the heart of the book of Psalms to look at a really powerful sequence of 5 ancient hymns, Psalms 96 all the way through 100. Now, these aren't just any old songs. You can think of them as a royal chorus, a unified and just thunderous celebration of God's absolute kingship over everything. So the big question is, why do these songs, written thousands of years ago, still have so much power? What are they trying to say to us, right here and now? Because these Psalms, they're not just history lessons. They're a living invitation, an invitation to see the world and our place in it in a totally different way. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so before we go any further, there's a term that'll help unlock all of this: enthronement psalms. It's what scholars call psalms with a super specific focus. They celebrate God not just as some distant creator, but as an active, present, and sovereign king. The one phrase you're going to hear over and over, the real heart of it, is "the Lord reigns." For the psalmists, this was just a statement of fact, the ultimate reality, and it's the foundation for everything else we're about to see.
So here's our plan. We're going to walk through each psalm, one by one. We'll start with the call for a new song in Psalm 96 and go all the way to the absolute joyful thanksgiving in Psalm 100. And then we'll pull it all together and see how they create this amazing harmony. Let's get started. First up, Psalm 96. This one kicks off the whole collection with, well, just an explosion of energy. It's a call for something fresh, something new, and something that's for absolutely everybody.
The main command is right there in the very first line: sing a new song. But notice who's being asked to sing: all the earth. This isn't some internal memo for a small group. It's like a global press release. Right from the get-go, the scope is absolutely universal.
And that really gets to the core message. The psalmist insists that God's glory should be talked about among all nations. Now, you got to remember, in a world full of local, tribal gods, this was a truly radical idea. It sets God apart as the one supreme creator, not a God for just one group of people, but the righteous judge of the entire world. So the big takeaway for us: worship isn't meant to be stale or exclusive. It's supposed to be dynamic. It's meant to break down walls and include the whole world in its view.
Okay, let's move on to Psalm 97 and see how this idea builds. Because if Psalm 96 was the call to worship, Psalm 97 is the reason why. It's this majestic picture of the king himself sitting on his throne.
There's that powerful declaration again: the Lord reigneth. But look at what happens right after. The immediate reaction isn't fear or dread, it's joy. The whole earth, even the faraway islands, are told to be glad about it. The idea here is that God being in charge is the best possible news for the world.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the contrast it sets up. God's reign is built on righteousness and justice. And back then, idols weren't just statues, they represented rival kingdoms, corrupt power structures, systems of injustice. When faced with God's real authority, all those false sources of power are shown to be completely powerless. So for those who love God, the righteous, his reign is a source of joy and light. The lesson is pretty clear. Recognizing God's authority isn't about being restricted, it's actually liberating. It brings real joy.
Next up, Psalm 98. It takes this theme of God's reign and adds 2 new layers: victory and judgment. And what's wild is that it frames both of these things not with fear, but with this explosive celebration.
This right here is the climax of the psalm. The whole world is pictured like an orchestra getting ready for a huge concert. And why? Because the King, the Lord, is coming to judge. Now, in our world, the word judgment can sound kind of negative, right? But here, it's the exact opposite. It's the final victory of fairness and justice over all the chaos and injustice. It's the moment when everything is finally made right.
I mean, the psalm calls on the sea to roar, the rivers to literally clap their hands, and the hills to sing for joy. The worship is loud, it's musical, it's public. And it's not just celebrating God's amazing works in general, but also his specific faithfulness to Israel. And that's key. His history with his people is the proof of his character for the whole world to see. So the takeaway here is really profound. For those who trust in God, his final judgment isn't something you fear. It's the long-awaited triumph that all of creation has been waiting for.
So we go from this cosmic celebration of judgment, and Psalm 99 brings the focus way in to the actual character of the king himself. And the one thing that rings out louder than anything else is his holiness. This psalm is actually built around a refrain that shows up 3 times, and each time it just intensifies the message: he is holy. It all leads up to this final verse, making it crystal clear that the reason for all this worship, the reason he is so worthy, is his perfect and absolute holiness.
And to show that this isn't just some abstract idea, the psalm gives us three heavyweight historical examples. It points to Moses, the lawgiver, Aaron, the high priest, and Samuel the prophet. These three guys represent the pillars of Israel's relationship with God, his law, his priesthood, and his prophets. The psalm says they called upon the Lord, and he answered them, which shows that this incredibly holy, exalted king is also a God who listens and actually responds to his people.
So the crucial point here is this beautiful tension. On one hand, God is the holy king who reigns way up high, but at the same time, he is present with his people. He's perfectly just. The psalm makes a point to say he punished their misdeeds, but he is also the God who forgave them. So the lesson for us is to try and hold both of those truths together. God's holiness demands our reverence, but his mercy invites us into a relationship. And that brings us to the grand finale of this whole collection, Psalm 100. This is one of the most famous psalms of all, and it really is the perfect conclusion. It's like a doorway into the very presence of the King we've been celebrating this whole time. So after everything we've seen, his universal call, his majestic reign, his victorious judgment, his perfect holiness, what's the final instruction? It's an invitation. Just enter. Come on in. And the password to get in? It's not perfection, it's thankfulness. This last psalm is just pure, unfiltered joy. It calls on everyone, everywhere to serve with gladness, not because you have to, but because you know him. You know he's our creator and our shepherd. It all comes down to his character. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting. The lesson is so simple, but it can change everything. The most natural response to who God is a life of joyful, grateful worship.
Okay, so now let's pull back and look at the whole picture. These 5 psalms aren't just placed here randomly. They're a brilliantly put together chorus, where each part builds on the last to create one single magnificent message.
Just look at this progression, it's amazing. Psalm 96 gives the universal command, worship. Then Psalm 97 explains why, because this king's reign is good news, it brings joy. Psalm 98 looks ahead to the climax of that reign, a righteous judgment that all of creation celebrates. Then Psalm 99 zooms in on the king's character, awesome, holy, but also merciful. And finally, Psalm 100 tells us how to respond. Enter his presence with thanksgiving. It's a complete journey of worship, from start to finish.
So we'll end right where we started, with that call from Psalm 96 for a new song. These ancient writers imagined the entire planet just erupting in praise for a righteous and holy king. So the question that leaves us with is, what does that look like now? In our world, in our lives, what would a fresh, creative, and global song of praise actually sound like today? That's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.